Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for August 15th, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to gather at the virtual water cooler and talk about what we've been up to. This is Slash Film senior writer Ben Pearson, and joining me on today's podcast are managing editor Jacob Hall,
Hello, hello.
weekend editor Brad Oman,
Hey, that's me.
and writers Hoai-Tran
Hey everyone.
and Chris Evangelista.
Hi.
All right, so Peter is sick, unfortunately, so he's not going to be able to join us today, but we figured it's been long enough, and HT is back, Chris is back from vacation, so we figured it's time for another edition of the water cooler, even though it's not Monday, so hopefully we'll probably get back to a regular schedule maybe next week. But let's talk about what we've been up to, guys. Jacob, what have you been doing lately?
I've been doing lots of adult things, like going to IKEA, realizing IKEA does not carry the thing I need, and leaving angrily. But more exciting than that, I went and bought a new car, or more specifically, my wife and I bought a new car. The lease on her Nissan Rogue was up, and we went out in search of a new vehicle. And rather than lease again, we decided to buy. And the thing about buying cars for us is that, as my wife always puts it, we don't buy cars as much as we go to car fittings to see what cars we can fit in, because I'm 6'4", she's 5'11", and cars aren't made for me. Like at the Nissan dealer, I was hitting my head on door frames constantly, and even though it's not a cool car, we ended up going with a Ford Flex. It was pretty much, think of it as a modern station wagon. We don't have kids, we have dogs, so it works for that. It has great trunk space, and most importantly, I have room to sprawl, Ben. I can actually literally sprawl in this car, and I can't sprawl in any other car ever. So yeah, I'm sure we may get some emails about saying like, oh, why did you buy that terrible car? Here's how it killed my father. But no, I'm very, very happy with the Ford Flex so far.
I really hope we don't get any emails saying that the Ford Flex killed anyone's father, but you never know. If you do want to send us an email, you can do it at peter@slashfilm.com. Okay, so Brad, what have you been up to lately?
I finally received my NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures that were a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. They're figures designed to look exactly like the Turtles do from the original movie from 1990. They are the exact action figures I always wanted as a kid, because all the figures that they ever made when I was younger that tried to look like the Ninja Turtle figures, or the Ninja Turtles from the movie, never really quite lived up to how they looked in the movie, especially when they started changing the design a little bit towards Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, and they had, different reptile spots, and they kind of looked like they had some kind of skin disease. But these new figures from NECA are quite possibly the best movie action figures that I've ever seen. They have replicated the design of the Turtles perfectly. They all look exactly like they should. It's in a package that looks like the actual original VHS box. It even has like artificial wear on the box design itself. All the Turtles come with their weapons and slices of pizza and a canister of ooze, and they're just like the coolest. I could not be more happy that I was able to snag this figure set.
So, Brad, let me ask you this: what do you do with these? Because I know you're a collector. Do you get any enjoyment out of like? I mean, are you one of those kinds of people that refuses to take them out of the box, or do you? How does that work for you?
No, I mean, when it comes to pretty much any new action figures that I buy, I'm taking them out of the box, because these aren't figures that I'm intending to sell at any point, and I get joy from setting them up in cool poses and like kind of replicating scenes from movies and putting them on display so that you can really see how cool they are. So that's pretty much what I do with most of my figures, especially when it comes to like, I collect Star Wars Black Series figures and things like that. I have some old like other stuff that I haven't taken out of package from when I was a little bit younger and like was into collecting, but like most of the new stuff that I buy, like I said, I take it out of a package, and so these I haven't gotten them out to like set them up yet, but when I do, like I'll figure out something for them.
And one more question: do you cross-contaminate franchises? Like, will you have one of these turtles like riding on the back of the Ecto-1 or something, or is that all, or is it, is everything very clearly delineated?
I haven't yet, but I have been toying with the idea.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yeah, but I've been thinking about it, but I don't know. It wouldn't be too difficult. Like, I mean, there would be some fun crossover to do between like the Ghostbusters figures and Ninja Turtles figures that I have, since they're both in from New York and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's something that I think about every now and then, but I haven't really executed yet. But I might do it at some point.
Okay, so that's the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures. For me, my wife and I are planning a big vacation next month. We're going to Iceland and Ireland, and we bought a drone. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and we like to make travel videos when we're out. Not necessarily like one of those, like a "Hey guys, Gucci" kind of travel video, but just more of like a visual scrapbook kind of thing where it's basically just for us, where we can look back on a trip, and see the whole 2 weeks play out in like a 10-minute period. So we went to New Zealand in 2016 and bought a drone for that, and we had the GoPro Karma, which is the brand of drone that the GoPro cameras company created, and that drone ended up getting recalled because they were falling out of the sky, and basically you could tell that GoPro spent all of their time designing and building their cameras and not enough time designing and building their drone. So this time around, I bought the DJI Mavic Air, which is DJI is like one of the best known drone manufacturers out there. So it's a very different experience and a whole lot better of an experience in terms of like the actual flight controls and the options that you have, and it's really cool. We took it out this past weekend to a place called Sycamore Canyon out here in LA. It's like a 40-minute drive from Hollywood, just sort of out in the middle of nowhere, open fields where there aren't any power lines or people to bother, and you get some cool vistas and mountains in the background and stuff like that. So we just tested it out this past weekend. So I'm happy with it. I'm looking forward to taking it out, on our international adventure and seeing what kind of footage comes back. So I'm very excited about that, and we're planning. Fingers crossed, we might be able to go to Skellig Michael, which is where they filmed the Octu scenes from the Star Wars movies, the most recent two Star Wars saga films. So, man, I just am dreaming about the drone footage we could get out there if the GPS signal holds true and it doesn't just fly off into the sea. So we'll see what happens if we're able to actually make that pilgrimage out there. That would be pretty awesome. Chris, you have been on vacation recently. Where did you go? How was your vacation?
It was good. I needed it. I basically haven't had a real vacation in over a year, and I really haven't had a day off in over a year, because even on the weekends I'm working on freelance stuff and stuff like that. So it was nice to just have a week off. We went to Brigantine, New Jersey, which is part of the Jersey Shore. And what I like about Brigantine is, unlike other destinations in the Jersey Shore, it's very quiet. It's basically like a retirement community with a beach. And that's perfect for me because I am an old man at heart, even though I'm somewhat young. So my wife and I just basically did nothing. We went to the beach, we read books, we watched TV, and that's it. It was great. It was great to do nothing for a full week, and it went by way too quick, but that's the way it goes.
So what was your favorite activity or meal or any particular highlight from the trip?
It's just nice to just be down there and not be at our house, which is like a dump. It's fine when I'm here, but when I go away to a much nicer place, it's like, oh, this reminds me, my place is a dump. So it was nice just to get away, and we can bring we bring our dogs with us, and we go at night. We just walk on the beach with the dogs, and there's no one around. And it's nice and quiet, and that's all I really care about. I need peace and quiet. That's all I'm looking for. I don't need to have wild and crazy adventures anymore.
That sounds pretty glorious. HT, on the opposite end of the spectrum, while Chris was basically just lounging around not doing much, you seem to have had a pretty jam-packed past few days. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I have had no peace and quiet for the past week and a half, but I don't mind because I have had kind of a whirlwind weekend. I'll start with the weekend because it was both work-related and also entertainment-related, and something that I've been looking forward to for a while. First, on Saturday, I went to see Hamilton, which I have been looking forward to ever since, the buzz started around it maybe 3 years ago, and I finally got to see it at the Kennedy Center in DC, and it was spectacular. I had such a great time. I was a little sort of tense watching it though, because I think I was just so excited to see all my favorite songs from the album come to life that I was just like paying attention really intensely and was not really able to relax into it. I kind of want to see it again just so I can enjoy the music and enjoy the performance. But it was so fun. It was well worth the wait. And I'm so happy I finally got to see it, even though, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, even though it was quite pricey, but as you do for a Hamilton ticket.
Yeah, for sure. So I had the opposite experience when I saw Hamilton. I didn't listen to the soundtrack beforehand, so I went in completely cold, and then of course just fell in love with it and have been listening to the soundtrack pretty much nonstop since then. So I guess the tension you were talking about feeling, did that just come from comparing what you were seeing on the stage to the versions of the song that were in your head from the soundtrack?
Basically that was essentially what I was trying to avoid by avoiding the album for so long, but I did give in and listen to the album and was obsessed with it. So I had like this sort of this dream or invention in my mind of like what I wanted to see with it. And when it didn't quite match up with it or was a little bit different or had like different choices, then sometimes there was that tension, but I still enjoyed it regardless. It was just so fun. The DC cast who was part of like the touring cast nationwide is so good. And yeah, our Hamilton especially was like quite good looking. So I enjoyed that as well.
Awesome. What else have you been doing?
So right after that, I left to go to London for work, and I can't say much about it. We actually didn't stay in London this time around. We stayed in Watford, which is a little bit outside of London. It had and we kind of stayed at the sort of country club-esque estate, but the hotel was cool because it was very much it was basically remade from an old like country estate that I think was like 200 years old. And as we were driving up to it, it felt very much like either you were going into a Gothic novel or you were about to just get dropped into an Austen novel or something. So it was fun, even though it was a little bit in the middle of nowhere, and it was really beautiful hotel though.
So did you have any time off to yourself, or was it just like a whirlwind doing a set visit or whatever you were up to and then just back on a plane?
Nope, whirlwind. It was Hamilton, on the plane, back on the plane, and then back to my home, which was kind of also a little bit packed as well because I've had relatives visiting for the past week and then more relatives visiting this week. It's kind of just like popped in the middle of a very family-centric 2 weeks, which I'm not upset about because I do love my family and I have a very big family. I'm happy to see all of them, especially because the first week my relatives are staying at my parents' house they were about to go to Vietnam for about 5 years for my uncle's job. And their two kids are the kids I dearly love. I babysat them for a couple of years, and it was just so nice to like hang out with them and just see them every day, even though it was a little bit chaotic. And my sister is also staying with me because she is here before she goes off to grad school in Montreal, and she just came back from like doing the El Camino in Spain, which is like a pilgrimage. So she's also having quite a whirlwind as well, and she's the one I went to see Hamilton with. So it was a lot of fun hanging out with my family, and then more family coming this week as well from France. And because we kind of love hanging out together, and we get FOMO whenever we don't hang out together, we went like rock climbing together. We are playing this video game called Overcooked. I think we have plans to do several barbecues. So it's quite exciting. I'm definitely not going to be sitting down and relaxing at a retirement home for anytime soon.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like man, you've really got a lot going on.
Yep.
So I guess moving back over to the other side of the pendulum in the what we've been reading category, Chris, when you're on vacation, you read a book. What were you reading?
Yeah, I read Alan Sepinwall's Breaking Bad 101, which is basically it covers the entire series Breaking Bad. Because I guess I'll just jump ahead, and you don't have to come back to me for this topic either. But during the vacation, we decided to just start rewatching Breaking Bad from the beginning because Better Call Saul is airing now, and I'm reviewing it for the site, and my wife has actually only seen like 1 or 2 episodes of Better Call Saul, so she wanted to start watching it, but she also wanted to rewatch Breaking Bad first, and I haven't really watched Breaking Bad since the beginning. So we went back and started rewatching that, and as a result, I remembered that Alan Sepinwall has this book covering the entire series, so I decided to just get that and read it while we were there, and it's great. It's an easy read. I think I read it in like 2 days, and it just it goes through literally the entire series. It covers casting and all that stuff. It's a really informative book. And as for rewatching Breaking Bad, the first season does not hold up. I know that's going to be sacrilege for some people who think this is like the best show ever made. The first season is a bit wonky. It's a little more off kilter than I remember. You can tell when they first started, they thought of it as more of like a comedy, like a dark comedy. And then by the time you get into season 2, the show really starts to become this much darker drama. And that's when I think the show becomes the great show that everyone remembers it as. But that first season is a little awkward. So that's part of the reason why I've said this before, where I think Better Call Saul is a better show, because Better Call Saul from the beginning, at least in my mind, has been great, and it hasn't had like a bad season yet. Whereas Breaking Bad, that first season just doesn't quite work as well as the rest. But we're up to season 4 now, and I'm loving it. I'm remembering why it's such a good show to begin with.
Yeah, that show is so great, and I think I'm right there with you. I joined the Breaking Bad hype train a little bit late in the game. I think I came on board the show when it was first airing, probably sometime around season 3. So I did the whole catch-up thing back then, and I remember watching the pilot and loving it, and then the first season sort of dropped off in quality a little bit, and I was like, wait, this is the show that everybody's talking about? But once you sort of get through that first season, I think you're right. I think that's when it really starts to pick up steam a little bit. And just for those who don't know, by the way, Alan Sepinwall is like a famous TV critic. I think he writes for Rolling Stone right now, and he has he wrote episode by episode recaps of Breaking Bad as it was airing, and he has a business relationship with Vince Gilligan, the creator. So I think he has a bunch of interviews and stuff in Breaking Bad 101. Is that right, Chris? Interviews with the creators and all of that?
Yeah, Vince Gilligan is interviewed, and Bryan Cranston. Pretty much almost everyone involved with the show, he talked to them for the book to get their insight into like certain episodes and certain scenes. So it has a lot of great just details about just the making of the show, as well as recaps and reviews.
Very cool. Okay, so
hey, Chris, I was wondering if you heard about the next book that he's doing with Matt Zoldersites. It's going to be same thing, but The Sopranos.
Yes, I have heard about that. I'm very excited to get. I think that comes out in January, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yeah. I guess this is the time for me to admit that I've never seen The Sopranos, and I'm like, cue the gasps all around from listeners all over the place. Yeah, I know.
I've never seen it either.
Okay,
oh my
all right.
God.
So I'm not the only one.
Actually, I watched the first
I haven't
season.
watched Sopranos either, guys.
Wow.
What?
All right, here's what we're going to do. Chris, you and I can organize a site-wide rewatch of The Sopranos. We're going to podcast about it. We're going to write about it. And we're going to do this sometime soon. Mark my words, listeners. Hold me to this. By 2019, every single person on the staff will be watching Sopranos and writing or talking about it.
All right, so you've heard it here first. So what we've been watching, Chris, you've segued us in with Breaking Bad, but Jacob, what have you been watching lately?
I haven't been up to much. It's been a pretty homebody of a week. I'm pretty much sitting around watching ER on Hulu. But I'm not talking about ER. But I did find Obvious Child on Netflix and watched it again with my wife. And we saw this when it came out in theaters in 2014. And I don't want to say it's vanished, but it's definitely a movie that's kind of fallen under the radar. When I think it's a movie that is really charming and wonderful and deserves to be re-seen and rediscovered on Netflix. It's Jenny Slate stars as a struggling stand-up comedian in New York City who becomes pregnant and decides to get an abortion, and it follows that decision and her relationships with her various friends and family. And it's just this totally non-judgmental, very funny, very charming film. It's directed by Gillian Robespierre, and it's 84 minutes long, and it's in many ways a very traditional New York-centric rom-com, except that it's about an abortion. But at the same time, it's not like an in-your-face, dark, offensive thing. It's very honest and real. And I'm curious if any of you guys saw this when it came out or revisited recently, because I think I liked it more the second time around at home than I did in the theater.
I have not seen this movie. Has anybody else on the show seen this?
Yeah,
Actually, yeah.
I saw it when it played at Sundance, and I've rewatched it a couple times since then. I love it. It's so good. Jenny Slate's fantastic in it. It's just, yeah, it's such a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely seek it out.
Yeah, I heard several people raving about it, so I got to catch it when I saw that I was on Netflix, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a much quieter, sort of subtle movie than I anticipated, but Jenny Slate is so good. I think that was kind of the beginning of the Jenny Slate-a-thon, so that was fun to see.
Yes, I agree. It was, I think I had this in my last streaming column I mentioned, or the one before it, and I was actually, when it came out, I was expecting Jenny Slate to get like award season love because I thought she was so good in the movie, and she got totally ignored, which I thought was really strange. Like, because I honestly think she gives a phenomenal performance in this, but I guess maybe the film was too controversial. I don't know, but I was expecting more attention towards award season, and it didn't get it.
Huh. Yeah. So, Jacob, what else have you been watching?
Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, because I like to see what's going on with the horror genre, both highs and lows, I rented Truth or Dare on Amazon Prime, and oh boy, Truth or Dare. This is a movie from Blumhouse, came out earlier this year. And for those who don't know about Blumhouse, their financial model is essentially, here's a couple $1 million, go make what you want, and we'll see what you come up with. And if it's great, we'll put it in theaters, or if it's bad, we'll put it in theaters, or let's dump it in VOD. It's very much a hands-off kind of studio. Jason Blum, who runs it, seems to kind of like have faith in filmmakers to either make something great for their money or make something terrible, and they can just sweep it on the rug when they spend so little on it that it's fine. And sometimes this produces Whiplash or Get Out or even Paranormal Activity. And sometimes you get Truth or Dare, which is the worst film Blumhouse has ever put in theaters. I have seen worse Blumhouse films on VOD. I have never seen one that was theatrically released as bad as this. It is directed by Jeff Wadlow, who did Kick-Ass 2, and it stars Lucy Hale as a college student, goes down to Mexico with her friends, goes to an abandoned church, plays a game of Truth or Dare, and starts being haunted by a demon that forces them to play Truth or Dare at random points, usually ending in their deaths or humiliations. And it is, I don't know where to begin. And the premise is sort of It Follows in a way, in that this game is infecting people they come in contact with. But the moment I knew we were in trouble was when somebody gets pulled into the game, random strangers around them take on this demonic visage to say Truth or Dare and demand them make a choice, and it looks like somebody, like a 7th grader using Photoshop to stretch out somebody's face, and it's not a good creative decision in any way whatsoever. Like, the moment you see it, I shuddered because I thought, who approved this? Who thought this was a good idea? It's had to go through so many people. Just like visual effects artists, the director, writers, producers had to look at this effect and say, yeah, that's fine, that'll do. But this movie just gets worse as it goes along, and it's just a nightmare to endure. And this is the same studio, Blumhouse had a hand in releasing Upgrade, the sci-fi action movie earlier this year, which is another movie probably made for similar amounts of money, but it's great. So Blumhouse is such an interesting thing. I feel like you're playing Russian roulette with them, but I always find something to talk about at the very least. Has anybody else suffered through this garbage, or is it just me?
I feel like Chris would be the only one who even has a chance of seeing this.
I did not. I saw the trailer for it, and I said, boy, that looks really bad, so I have yet to see it. If it ever shows up on, like, Netflix, I'll probably watch it as I'm, doing other things, but no, I have yet to see it.
Okay, so that's Truth or Dare. Watch at your own peril, apparently. Brad, what have you been watching?
We dare you to watch Truth or Dare.
Boo.
You shut up. What have I been watching? Why am I so yesterday I went to go see 8th Grade for a second time. I haven't seen it since I saw it at Sundance, and funnily enough, my mom mentioned that she wanted to see it, which I was surprised by, because usually it's scary movies are the ones that she likes to go out of her way to see. And it's not often that her attention is caught by an indie movie like that until maybe it gets nominated for an Oscar or something like that. My mom's a very general audience kind of moviegoer. But apparently, like a lot of moms do sometimes, she was off this summer because she works at a school, and she saw a segment on the Today Show with Bo Burnham and Elsie Fisher, and that was enough to convince her to want to see it. So we went to see it yesterday, and she absolutely loved it. I still loved it a second time. The movie is just so charming and terrifying and perfect, and just it's just a wonderful movie. And I hope that people still get a chance to go see it. They had those free screenings last week for people, and it's just something that I hope people continue to go see. Apparently, it's one of the highest grossing indies of the year so far. So at least some people are seeing it, and I hope that it gets a good life when it comes out on home video and people start spreading it around.
I saw this movie as well, and I'll just talk about it briefly here. And I think, I mean, we've really said almost all there is to say about the film, but I also really enjoyed it. And I feel like, Brad, your mom likes horror movies. This movie kind of is a horror movie in some
fair.
respects. So I feel like it's not too far afield from her her typical stuff. Yeah, Elsie Fisher is so good in this movie, and I mean, just echoing what everybody says about this, it's just kind of amazing that like a guy in his Bo Burnham's like not even 30 yet, right? Like he's
in his late 20s.
Yeah, in his late 20s was able to tap into making a movie that feels so specific to to everyone, really. I mean, it's not just like the female experience, which he captures pretty well from the women that I've talked to who've seen this movie, but like there are a lot of things that sort of transcend gender in this movie that everyone who suffered through middle school experienced. So it is a great movie, and everyone should definitely see it. It's very it's so good, especially for a directorial debut, I think. So, what else have you been watching, Brad?
I recently rewatched Mystery Alaska, which is available right now on HBO if you happen to have a subscription to that, or you have HBO Go or Now or whatever. This is a movie that I really like. I watched it when I was, I think, in high school. I just happened to stumble upon it when it was playing on a movie channel or something. And it didn't really get much critical acclaim. It was regarded as kind of just being like this throwaway mediocre thing, but I actually really like this movie, partially because it's the kind of movie that Hollywood doesn't really make anymore. It's this mid-budget ensemble sports drama with these kind of quirky small town Alaska characters, and they have this hockey team where it's like a big deal to play on the team in this town. It's it really drives basically their passion, and everything's based around the Saturday game that they play with this group of like 10 people. And it's very much a sports movie in every sense of the word, but the characters in it are also really fun. It's got a great cast, Russell Crowe and Hank Azaria, and who else? Burt Reynolds is in it, and it's just I've always enjoyed it quite a bit. And while I was watching it, I really think that because it's a Walt Disney Pictures production that they released through Hollywood Pictures, I wish that they would do something with it and maybe turn it into like some kind of series, kind of like Friday Night Lights, because I know that they're already working on a Mighty Ducks live action series reboot, but this would be, I feel like, something that would be a little bit different and a little more mature, and like especially with that small town vibe, I think it has the potential to be something like that. If they were to do something with the property, even though it's not a recognizable name, I think you could revamp it and turn it into something really cool.
I remember seeing this when I was really young and don't remember anything about it other than, oh yeah, I remember I saw that movie. So I'm glad that it still holds up. What else have you been checking out, Brad?
And then I this is old news by now, but it's been on my DVR, and I finally got around to watching the roast of Bruce Willis from Comedy Central, and it is hilarious. They rip into him so well. The lineup of roasters was fantastic. I mean, so you have Nikki Glaser and Jeff Ross, of course, but then you also have people like Sybil Shepherd there and Edward Norton. If you only watch one bit from the roast of Bruce Willis, watch Edward Norton's bit, because he gives this amazing monologue talking about all the things that he could never do because he's not Bruce Willis, and like he makes them sound like compliments, but they're insults, and it's a performance that Edward Norton is giving, and it's done so well, and like everything he says is just so hard hitting and honest and hilarious. Of course, Demi Moore showed up at some point too. That it was a quote unquote surprise, even though they used it to help promote the roast. But yeah, it is brutal and just so funny. I love when they do roasts like this and they just like don't hold anything back when they do them. So if you like that kind of comedy, you should definitely check it out.
All right, so that's the roast of Bruce Willis on Comedy Central. Chris, what have you been watching?
Yeah, in addition to Breaking Bad, I also watched the first season of The Sinner, which is that USA show with Bill Pullman and Jessica Biel. It's fine. The beginning is really like the first episode really hooks you, and I was really excited because I was like, oh wow, this is going to be great. And then it kind of runs out of steam. It's actually doing something really similar to what Sharp Objects is doing, where it's about this woman and her trauma and her past with her mother and her sister, and Sharp Objects does it so much better. But it's disposable TV that is okay to watch. I mean, Jessica Biel is really good in it. Bill Pullman is good, but it sort of runs out of steam. But it's okay to like sort of just watch if you have nothing else to watch. I haven't watched the second season yet, but I hear it's better, so I'll probably get around to watching it eventually. But the first season is now on Netflix. And the other thing I watched is Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich, which is the new Puppet Master film. And I'm going to go against the grain here. Almost everyone I've seen online has been praising this as this, this is this crazy, violent movie. And let me tell you, this movie is awful. This is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I'm sure that'll get me in trouble because, this film is being, sponsored, like funded by Fangoria, and everyone's very excited that Fangoria is back, and so am I. But this movie is bad. It ended, and I was just furious. And it actually ends on like a cliffhanger because I guess they want to turn this into like a whole new franchise. And I just, the minute the credits rolled, I pretty much said, "Oh, fuck you" to this movie, and I have no intention of like watching what comes next. So don't believe the hype. Puppet Master Littlest Reich is terrible, and I'm someone who can really get down with shitty horror, like horror movies that I know are bad, but I can still like. And this is just the opposite end of that, where it's not even like entertaining. So go to hell, Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich.
That is unfortunate, because this was written by S. Craig Zoller, who's the guy who wrote and directed Bone Tomahawk a couple years ago, and that was like one of my favorite. I think that was my favorite movie of 2015 when that came out. I was very taken with that film, and I thought the script was fantastic. And then Zoller has just been like on this downward decline in terms of, in my opinion, in terms of writing. It's like the movie that he did with Vince Vaughn, the name of it is escaping me right now.
We're all in Cell Block 99.
Yes, exactly.
What a piece of garbage that movie is.
Yeah,
holy crap.
it's not good, and then it sounds like this one is also not very good. He has another one coming up called Dragged Across Concrete with Mel Gibson coming out, and I'm just like, God, nothing about that sounds appealing to me. So it's unfortunate to see him sort of fall off so sharply. But Jacob, have you seen the new Puppet Master movie yet?
No, but I heard Chris's reaction, and I've also heard other reactions. I know that friend of the site and occasional writer for us, Jacob Knight, who loves trash. He loves trashy movies of all kinds and all shapes. He adored it and wrote about it on Birth Movies Death. And Jacob's the kind of guy who, like I said, likes movies that really are off-putting and unpleasant, and likes to dig into that. But I think his opinion will be the minority one when more people get to see this, because I think Chris's reaction seems to be the one people are kind of quietly muttering about because they don't want to. I think some people are maybe worried about upsetting the folks at Fangoria because there's a truly wonderful team working there. But at the same time, I think the people at Fangoria know exactly what this movie is. Whether they love it or hate it, they know what it is. So I think people should be honest about it.
Okay, so that's Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. And Chris, is that coming out soon, or is it coming to VOD? Do you know what?
Oh God, who cares? I think it is out soon. I got a screener of it, and I don't know when it's out. And I'm so angry at this movie that I don't even want to look up when it's out. It'll be out at some point. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I recently watched, like I mentioned, 8th Grade, and then I also saw Black Klansman, which the Slash Filmcast just did more of an in-depth review of, so I'd encourage you guys to listen to their discussion about that movie. This is Spike Lee's newest film. It stars Denzel Washington's son, John David Washington, and it's really, really good. I mean, I think I was surprised because Spike Lee is very hit or miss for me as a director, but this is his most accessible and and like you can really feel the passion in his storytelling here. This is one of the best scripts that I think he's worked with in a long time. The acting is all really great. Adam Driver is really good in this movie. Washington is really solid in the lead role, and the movie, I mean, it is Spike Lee laying it out on the line and making a film that that speaks to our current moment in a way that like I feel like Sorry to Bother You earlier this year also felt like a movie that was very 2018, and Black Klansman I think blows that out of the water because it basically just in that regard, because it anchors the release of that movie to current events and very, very recent events, and it draws this line between an undercover cop who infiltrates the KKK in the 1970s to modern events and the Trump presidency, and how far we've come as a society, or in this case how really not far we've come at all, in a way that that makes those distinctions very clear and very the movie's like borderline over the top when it comes to being didactic and sort of hammering its point home, but I feel like we are living in a time right now where that point needs to be made over and over and over again about how like white supremacy is not something that we should be accepting as a society. So anyway, like I said, listen to the Slash Filmcast full review of Black Klansman. That episode just came out I think yesterday, so you can listen to that right now. And then the last thing that I've been watching is Culture Shock Freaks and Geeks. So Culture Shock is a new show on A&E, and I would never have known about the show if I didn't see people like Seth Rogen tweeting about it not too long ago. I think it first aired in July, and I just put it on my DVR and finally just got around to it. But it's basically an hour-long behind-the-scenes documentary about Freaks and Geeks, which is the one season show that aired on Fox and was canceled, and helped launch the careers of people like James Franco and Seth Rogen and Jason Segel and a ton of other A-list actors now. And it was created by Paul Feig and executive produced by Judd Apatow, and it's basically like the best special feature that you would find on a DVD. And I actually don't own Freaks and Geeks on DVD. I watched it and rewatched it on Netflix. It was streaming there last time I checked. So I don't know, maybe the DVD actually does have like the box sets. Maybe it has a bunch of great special features on it, but I've never seen any of those. So this show, which is the 4th episode of the first season of Culture Shock on A&E, is devoted entirely to Freaks and Geeks and just goes through the creation of it and has tons of interviews with all of the major players, and it was really great to watch. I mean, it's just, that show is so good, and watching these people reminisce about making it and how it affected their careers and sort of changed the cultural landscape, even though it was basically ignored at the time and treated really, really terribly by its own network, was just a heartwarming kind of thing. So I just looked this up, and you can watch it on A&E's website right now. It's available until December 31st, 2035, which is kind of hilarious to me. They put such a specific date on it. But yeah, if you have a cable TV provider, you can log in with your info and just watch it right now on A&E's website. So that's Culture Shock Freaks and Geeks. That's the 4th episode of the first season of that show. That is what I've been watching. HT, what have you been watching lately?
So to cap off my crazy week, I got to see Crazy Rich Asians. I actually went to see it with my mom. I went to an early screening last week on Tuesday, and I have been looking forward to this movie for quite a while now. I had read the book, which I admittedly was not that impressed with, just because it was a very sort of lightweight, frivolous book, very much a beach read. But Crazy Rich Asians was a story that I think would have suited the big screen so well, and it did. I enjoyed this movie so much. It was basically like Devil Wears Prada meets every Jane Austen novel, a tale of class and culture and the clash of cultures and everything like that. And it was opulent and so fun to watch, and also kind of paid homage to a lot of great rom-coms as well. But most importantly, it had Michelle Yeoh just like tearing everyone a new one. And after I watched that, I was like, I just want her to be my mom so she can degrade me and call me trash in her designer outfits because I love her and would give her my firstborn children. So, yes, Crazy Rich Asians is great. The cast is great, especially Michelle Yeoh, but also Constance Wu, of course, playing a very kind of starry-eyed Cinderella character. And it's such a fun, such a movie that I identified with so much as an Asian American, even though it wasn't specifically about an Asian American family. It did sort of hit a lot of those cues, and it's a great film that I highly recommend. And especially if you're Asian American and you're seeking to see a movie that represents you on the big screen, or you're just looking for a refreshing rom-com, because it works on so many of those levels.
So that's out in theaters right now. Aishi, what did your mom think about it?
Oh, she loved it. She's already planning a big family trip to see it all together. So she was very excited. She definitely wants to go visit Singapore now and eat all the food there. There are a lot of good food scenes, by the way. I think that like the food just has got us just good treatment as the fashion did in this film.
Awesome. So you've also been watching some things that don't quite live up to that level of quality.
No, I think I talked about this before, but whenever I go on a long plane trip, I really enjoy watching movies that I would not have paid for, or that I just missed in theaters, and they are totally fine movies. But I ended up watching Rampage, the Dwayne Johnson movie based on the video game that I never played. But and I also ended up watching Ready Player One and Molly's Game, which I don't want to categorize as one of the bad movies I watched. So that was actually a good film. It was the directorial debut of Aaron Sorkin. But first, Rampage was a lot more brutal than I anticipated. I kind of wanted it to be a fun Dwayne Johnson romp, but it started off with like this horrific death, and then just like kept adding on all these more horrific deaths that were kind of similar to like how Kong Skull Island could have been very B movie, but ended up being quite brutal and violent. I kind of got that sort of similar vibe as well. And then Ready Player One, which I know some people love. I'm gonna say I did not. It was just kind of a cacophonous mess to me. I did fall asleep at one point, and which is kind of amazing to me because there's just so much happening on the screen. And I think just because there's so much happening, there's so much visual information that they're throwing at you, I just got overwhelmed and my eyes were tired, so I just kind of drifted off a couple times. I've said that I'm not a big fan of the book. I will say it's better than the book because at least it's not just, one page basically listing off Wikipedia references of like every 80s property. And it feels less like it's just riding on the nostalgia and is more kind of like a almost typical YA dystopian movie. Mm-hmm. But it was fine. Not great. Molly's Game, I did enjoy. I never got around to seeing this in theaters, and I kind of figured it would be fine to see on a plane because Aaron Sorkin is... I didn't know much about his directing style. I kind of assumed that he would direct much like he writes, in that he's not very visually strong. It was actually quite visually like stimulating movie, and I enjoyed it. Jessica Chastain is great. It does kind of suffer from Sorkinism in that it like goes a little overlong and wanders off in the last third of the film. Could have definitely been a little bit more tight and condensed, but I thought it was a good film, and I enjoyed watching that one much more than the other two.
Good stuff. So let's move into the what we've been eating category. Jacob, what have you been eating?
Well, I normally don't chime in on the what we've been eating section. This is usually Brad's section of choice. But with Fantastic Fest coming up soon and people coming into Austin as returning people or as guests for the first time of the city, I want to tell you about Torchy's Tacos, which I've been on a kick recently. They're a local chain. It's not Mexican food. I know people who like turn their nose at them because they're not in any way Tex-Mex or Mexican by any stretch of the imagination. They're very much Americanized tacos. It's stuff like deep fried chicken inside tacos, or fried avocado, or sausage. All kinds of strange and interesting and traditional combinations. Extremely delicious. Queso is maybe the best you've ever had in your life. So if you're one of those lucky people heading up to Austin for South by or Fantastic Fest, or just because you want to come say hi, Torchy's is amazing, and I'm eating there like every other day now, and it's very bad for me, but I can't stop.
Well, I hope that that you enjoy it and that you don't go into cardiac arrest anytime soon. So,
someday, but not yet.
Brad, what have you been eating?
I don't have anything super special this week, but I did stumble upon 2 new kinds of Skittles that you might find while you're out and about. They have some crossover flavors. One of them is an exclusive thing that you can only get at Dollar General stores. It's called Bright Side, and I'm gonna read the flavors off here in the back just because I don't remember them all. So in this one you have watermelon, paradise punch, kiwi banana, tangerine, and pink lemonade, which is pretty good. Actually, those aren't the Dollar General exclusive ones. Those are just regular ones that I found that are new. The Dollar General exclusive ones are Summer Splash Skittles, and those have blue raspberry, watermelon, kiwi banana, orange, and strawberry. I like these actually more than regular Skittles, mostly because I'm more keen on tropical kind of flavors than I am the regular fruit flavors that Skittles usually offers. I kind of feel the same way about Starburst. So these are pretty good. I picked up a couple packs of them just because if I ever had a taste for them again, then I could just have them. But yeah, so if you can find them, the Bright Side ones are in a yellow package, and the Summer Splash ones are in like a kind of like a magenta package.
All right, and I appreciate the Foley work you did there with the crunching bag right next to the mic. Adds a little extra level to the show. So
I had to look at the flavors.
Yeah, no, I know.
We're an ASMR podcast now, by the way.
Yeah, you got to talk really. You basically have to whisper the rest of your selection. So I think we only have one more category left, and that is what we've been playing. Jacob, what have you been playing lately?
Like everybody else with the video game system, I've been playing Dead Cells. It's a new game by developer Motion Twin, and it's available on Microsoft Mac, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. So no matter what you have, you can play this game. I got it for $25, so it's not a full price game. It's an indie game, but it's really worth that cost. I'm obsessed with it. I've been playing it nonstop. Its basic gist is that it's a roguelike, which for those who don't know video game terms, that means that it's run based. You do a run of the game, you die, you start over. And so the goal of the game is to try to beat it in one run. And but as you play through, you can collect currencies to change your character, upgrade weapons, buy new things, change how you play the game. But also you can upgrade abilities that stay with you when you reset. So you're changing your character within the run, but you're also changing your character in the overall game and making it easier to come back each time you play, which means that the more you die, the stronger you get, and the easier it is to go longer in the main game. I still haven't beaten it. I've managed to get to maybe the 4th or 5th level, and it's really terrific. The combat feels great. There's so many different types of weapons and items to equip your characters with, so you're trying to find combinations because what you get each level is randomized, so you never know what you're going to have, so you got to learn to make do with everything, so it forces you to get good with everything. And the levels are always randomized, so every time you play, you do not know where everything's going to be. It's impossible to memorize, and it just has this sort of in addition to being a really well-playing game with mechanics I enjoyed a lot, it has this really kind of great icky atmosphere. It's set in this fantasy prison, and your character is a decapitated corpse who's been taken over by a mysterious force of some kind. So you're playing. So the idea being that whenever you die, you just go back and get a new body. It's a really really dark and twisted and sometimes very funny angled for this on which to hang this really really fun gameplay.
I was gonna say that this reminded me of Edge of Tomorrow a little bit, the Tom Cruise movie, but then your description of the character body completely destroyed that. So. Oh,
Edge of Tomorrow is so much a roguelike video game. I know people, myself included, have written about how that is the best video game movie ever made. And the idea of repeating runs over and over again until you get better and can actually beat the final boss, that is this game and this genre of games summed up perfectly. And that's why I love Edge of Tomorrow. It really captures the feeling of mastering a video game. But I've also been playing another side-scrolling action game, Salt and Sanctuary. I know I've talked about Dark Souls on this podcast before, the extremely punishing, very difficult series of dark fantasy RPG action games. Salt and Sanctuary is it's a riff on the Dark Souls system. It pretty much takes everything that's Dark Souls, but puts it into a side scroller. So instead of being a 3D game, you're moving back and forth Mario style. But it's a really good ripoff. I had to even call it a ripoff because it's so good. It captures so much of what makes those games satisfying. But I want to call out how I bought this game on PC. And then I bought it for my PS4 because I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go back upstairs to play it. And then I bought it on my Switch because I wanted it portable. So I've bought Salt and Sanctuary 3 times now, and it's been like $15 each time. So it's not like it's a huge investment. But it's a testament to the game's quality that I want to be able to play upstairs, downstairs, and on the go on my Switch. So if you like Dark Souls or want like a really challenging side scroller, Salt and Sanctuary is really good and really cheap.
Very cool. Yeah, so I think some good recommendations in today's episode. There's a lot to dig into there if you're looking for reading material or movies to see or games to play. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys and instructive in some way. I think that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode. Before we go, where can people find more of our work online? Jacob, let's start with you.
I'm on slashfilm.com every single day, and I'm on Twitter where I'm at Jacob S. Hall.
Brad?
Yes, you can find me at slashfilm.com as well. Also on Twitter at Ethan_Anderton, and listen to my podcast, Go Flix Yourself, for stupid jokes and talk about movies.
HT?
You can find me writing every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
Chris?
Also slashfilm.com, on Twitter at Evangelista413.
I am also at Slashfilm, and you can find me on Twitter at Ben Pearson, and you can find Slashfilm Daily, published every weekday on the site, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and TV, as well as deeper dives into the great features you can find at slashfilm.com. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps, and please feel free to send your feedback, questions, comments, and concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. Make sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends about the show, spread the word, and we will talk to you tomorrow.